Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for joining me on today's discussion. I'll be talking about education systems and religion and Black people as always. And I hope that you enjoy and stick around. So, thank you so much for joining me. Today, I want to talk about double consciousness, Black people, education, and religion in America. I will be dabbling into each of these topics. Of course, it'll be pretty surface level in terms of like what I want to talk about. The goal of my videos is to kind of like introduce these topics and a quick layout into these topics so that you're able to explore more on your own time and give a little bit of my opinion along the way. Double consciousness is a subtle presence of your identity lingering when you're in public. It is knowing that you're perceived as a Black person by the eyes of others constantly, and what comes with being a Black person. The thought and feeling going through your mind when you're in the store thinking the cashier may think I'm going to steal. You maneuver in a way to make your movements crystal clear. You try not to go in your pockets or make sudden movements. You want to avoid looking suspicious to others. Their conception of you has likely already been made by media. You cannot prove them right. So then it feels like your duty to uphold good behavior for all of your race. This responsibility is on you to have a good influence on the way they see Black people, because you know it's the first and likely only thing they see of you. If you took any race theory class, you likely know about W.E.B. Du Bois and learned about the double consciousness theory. The second sight in this American world, a world which yields him no true self consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the other world. One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts. There's been a lot of like writings and discussion about this theory of double consciousness in America, and there's a lot of really valuable resources, but I want to connect them a little bit differently in terms of religion and education systems in America and how that kind of connects. Elaborating on this two thoughts that W.E. Du Bois says in the quote, I interpret this as having kind of like two converging thoughts and kind of like two emerging thoughts always running through your head when you're trying to go about the world and do something. The intent to complete a task or do something or explore the world in your own way, and the need to know how others around you are perceiving you. You need to be conscious of this for your own safety. One of the most useful examples being when traveling. If you are a Black person traveling through America or globally, you must know where you are tolerated and where you are unwelcomed, where it is dangerous for you. You do extensive research on the safest neighborhoods in, let's say, Tennessee to travel to on a trip, what predominantly white areas to avoid. Even globally, somehow every country has learned to be racist towards Black people through the lens of American news stations or popular media. I want to talk about these battling thoughts that Black people a lot of times have through religion and education. No matter what you try to do to fit in, you will always be a Black person first. Not a mother, a father, priest, Christian. First, you are Black, and then you are everything else. Religion shows us that we will never fit in, never converge with whiteness or American ideals. The majority of Americans being converted to Christianity meant sharing churches and spiritual beliefs with similar teachings of white and European ideals. Yet we have never been seen as equal. In religious texts and speakings about the Bible, Dante Stewart says to hear this language is to hear the voice of God upon us in a land that has never truly known God or love or blackness. This is the interesting thing about living in America and being Black, and doing both while being a Christian. We are caught between a terrifying and inescapable reality: the Bible, the country, and the body. A very common upbringing for Black Americans is growing up in the church, especially those in the South. Church became embedded Church became an embedded ritual for families and communities in predominantly Black areas. And personally, it confuses me how some white Christians argue that they are discriminated against or somehow oppressed when this is the most popular religion. the most forcefully and commonly practiced religion, the most violently converted religion, the most law abiding, the most upheld in court systems, the most beneficial religion to believe in. To be white and Christian is to have the key in the American world. To be a white Christian woman is to be a protecting saint. To be a white Christian man is to be leader of the world. Yeah. I don't know if our country has taken the time to look itself in the mirror, to question the ways it keeps us up at night and makes it hard to pray. How do I be black and Christian? Dante Stewart talks about his upbringing in his novel Shoutin' in the Fire, him being a once successful athlete and finding white acceptance in the world of sports for a period of time in his life, and how religion shaped his upbringing and black ideals. He says that while playing football and finding success with this, that it was a powerful appeal. It was the cost of making it in a white world that cared only about my body, in performance, or in pain. The reality of being black and young and terrified, fearing that they, his teammates, would never be protected in the world the way we knew we were protected on the field. Tante felt that getting this access to the white world, that he was the black exception. His views and perception of his own people started to shift as he saw black people in similar ways that white people did. White meant right, black meant suspicion. White was just normal, black meant danger. He says that white people became the center of his world and he failed to listen to the voices of black people. Going back to Du Bois, and he asked the question, how does it feel to be a problem? Thinking about so many systems that black people go through their lives to accomplish the same things as white people, education, higher education, affirmative action, this question kind of comes to light. How does it feel to be a problem? Separate education. I want to talk about Trevor Noah's thoughts on living in South Africa and European dominance over African lives. The only way to make apartheid work was to cripple the black mind. Under apartheid, the government built what became known as Bantu schools. Bantu schools taught no science, no history, no civics. They taught metrics and agriculture. How to count potatoes, how to pave roads, chop wood, till the soil. It did not serve the Bantu to learn history and science because he is primitive, the government said. This will only mislead him, showing him pastures in which he is not allowed to graze. They were simply being honest. Why educate a slave? Why teach someone Latin when his only purpose is to dig holes in the ground? There is no document to describe these people as slaves. Technically, it is not officially documented in government archives. The oppressors, white aliens of South Africa, control government focus of what is taught in school. This is the first sign of initiating slave systems. When you are in charge of what knowledge is allowed to be shared and what groups are left out, you are setting up who is primitive, physically laborious job fillers versus who are the white collar rule makers. And anyone who does not look like this rule stands out. This continues today in new systems in America and why we have concepts such as imposter syndrome, feeling out of place and discriminated against in higher education systems. I've heard countless stories of Black people abroad in educational systems where they are second guessed by their peers, questioned twice as much as their classmates around them because they are Black. Being Black and educated was never in the agenda. Doing so is an automatic defiance to oppressive forces that are still in control. When you think about the majority of governors who appoint school board officials, and then those school board officials, how many are white? And historically, what lesson do they prioritize in history curriculums? How many have Black children in their immediate family to empathize with, to know the Black struggle in education systems? And yes, as unfortunate as it is, most people don't care or sympathize unless it's someone that they can imagine for themselves, someone that they intimately care about and can see in that position. If, let's say, we require every US president to send their own sons and children on front lines for war conflict, there would at least be more thought put into wasting tax dollars on going to war. People love to say, Give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. What they don't say is, and it would be nice if you gave him a fishing rod too. These tools are specifically not given to us. Mostly heavily Black and Hispanic areas not having proper school funding and resources to updated books and learning material is not a coincidence. These systems are systematically and intentionally put in place to inhibit decent education for specifically these people. We do not want them educated. We want to minimize their minds as a docile worker. They will not know their rights. They will not know the history of rebellion and what is possible for them. The limited history shapes our viewpoint and our thoughts of what is possible for us. It is a harder and a slower process to fight for our human rights, for unions, for jobs that provide healthcare, safety procedures, adequate adequate breaks and time off. Learn Black history and not just the sad kind, but the ones that rebelled, the ones that fought back and won, the ones that were not taught in schools. That's all I have. Thank you so much for listening if you did. I really hope you enjoyed. And please leave any additional thoughts that you have below in the comments. I'll respond to each and every single one. I'll read each and every single one. And thank you again. Goodbye.